Hello guys, and welcome back to another in-depth look at my mod for Halo Reach PC, Fall of Reach, Infinite. It's been quite a while since the first time I've showcased this mod on YouTube, and don't worry, I didn't come empty-handed. I've just released New Alexandria and the multiplayer map Countdown as part of FoRI 0.17, the first step into the future of Fall of Reach Infinite. In the description and pinned comment, I've attached a link to the mods page on Nexus, where you can install this playable demo. I'm super excited to get this demo out into the public, and I can't wait to hear your feedback. For access to even more early builds, be sure to join the Tangent Discord server, where you can gain access to early builds, help playtest various modes, maps, and missions. Now, stick around to learn more about the weapons, vehicles, revised design philosophy, and more of Fall of Reach Infinite. As you'll notice when playing this mod, some of my core design philosophies and goals have shifted since last August. This time around, I'm sticking much more closely to my intentions to give each and every weapon a distinct role and use to craft a much more interesting and fun sandbox to play around with. While the mod will have less weapons in campaign than before, it will still feature a sandbox that is bigger and more diverse than in Vanilla Reach, that fits the Infinite inspired theme much more closely. After all, it's not really about the size of the sandbox, as we see in Halo CE, which in my opinion has the best sandbox in all of Halo. Prior to this release, a lot of my custom weapons suffered from role overlap, such as the Grenadier DMR. This weapon may have been enjoyable to play around with, but we already have the grenade launcher in campaign, so in reality, it's unnecessary. Now, thanks to a more distinct, diverse, and purposeful sandbox, as well as Forerunner's model importing tool, FoRI has never felt more refined and polished. While I'm sticking to a tightly woven sandbox for campaign, multiplayer and firefight is another story. In FoRI's multiplayer and firefight, more weapons and weapon variants will be featured, just like in Halo Infinite. And both will include all of the cut weapons from the previous iterations of FoRI's campaign. Now, it's time to introduce all of you to Fall of Reach Infinite's weapon sandbox so far. What better way to kick off a showcase of FoRI's weapons than with the main assault rifle of FoRI and Halo Infinite, the MA40 assault rifle. The successor to the MA37 of Vanilla Reach, the MA40 sports a 36-round magazine, faster fire rate, and a tighter bullet spread. It also sports the Halo 4 firing sound, since Infinite's assets are off limits. For 0.17, the look of the MA40 is heavily inspired by last year's campaign demo, but I plan to update its design for the next release. For now, enjoy an assault rifle that's much more enjoyable in campaign and multiplayer. Next up is the first of FoRI's suite of entirely custom weapons, the BR45 battle rifle. The BR45 is the predecessor to the classic BR55 of the original Halo trilogy, sporting the 2x scope, 3x burst, and 36-round mag. Also, it sports the classic sound we've all come to know and love. The BR45 also uses slower projectile speeds similar to Halo 3, however, the projectiles are considerably faster than Halo 3. The BR45 most clearly dominates at medium to long ranges. Now, in the comments of my previous FoRI video, a lot of you suggested that I take more creative liberty when designing FoRI's weapons, and so I have. As you can see, this is not the battle rifle of Halo Infinite. Rather, it's an entirely custom design that features elements of multiple previous battle rifles and the DMR. Spartan 0398, the creator of the model, also added orange stripes to bring it closer to the designs of some of Halo Infinite's weapons. Spartan 0398 has done an excellent job with this kit bash and retexture, and I'm excited to include it as the main battle rifle of FoRI. The Mark 50 Sidekick, or MK50 Sidekick, we still don't really know the name, makes a name for itself as a reliable, close-range killing machine, sporting a 12-round magazine, incredibly fast fire rate, consistent damage output, and the Halo 2 Anniversary firing sound. The Sidekick excels in CQC combat, however, due to its slower projectile speeds, you'll want to stick with the VK78 or BR45 for longer range engagements. The Sidekick will be featured alongside the classic Magnum in both campaign, multiplayer, and firefight. Again, this weapon was modeled and textured by the legendary Spartan 0398. The Scout Shotgun returns from previous iterations of the FoRI campaign, and this time, it's heavily inspired by Halo Infinite's Bulldog shotgun, using Reach's model with a more metallic finish akin to Combat Evolved, and the green sights of Halo 2's shotgun. Sporting a 10-round magazine, tighter spread, and faster fire rate, you'll be able to do more damage at a range than with other shotgun variants. The shotgun is currently only featured in campaign, but it will come to the rest of FoRI with later releases. It also uses the H2A firing sound. The T25 plasma rifle of FoRI uses values that are much closer to those of Halo Combat Evolved, but with a bit more projectile spread. It also sports a deep blue color. You'll find this plasma rifle much more useful than the vanilla one, and I plan to implement a CE-style stun mechanic later on. The Brute Vehemence is a heavily modified Brute plasma repeater that spits red-hot plasma at an absurdly fast fire rate, generating a large amount of heat and using up battery life very quickly. This weapon will replace the Spiker as the main weapon for the Brutes, and it will be the only plasma repeater to be featured in campaign. The Proto Stalker is a heavily modified focus rifle, functioning more like a traditional DMR. This weapon sports a 4x scope, and fires beams in more controlled bursts with headshot capability. It also sports a red shell as a nod to Halo Infinite's Stalker rifle. You'll prefer this weapon for long-range engagements and elite encounters. The Mark I Ravager is an early version of Halo Infinite's Ravager, this one being in the form of a purple concussion rifle. Firing 3-shot bursts, this weapon is much more deadly than a traditional concussion rifle. Next up, my favorite weapon in FoRI, the intimidating Skewer, arrives to the battle, shooting deadly spears at targets with a high velocity. If your enemy has this weapon, you'll want to take them out ASAP or run the other direction. This weapon was modeled and textured by Skookum Props pre-Halo Infinite multiplayer reveal, so it does lack a few details that were more clearly visible in the multiplayer trailer. Regardless, this weapon looks absolutely incredible, and it's absurdly fun to use, especially in multiplayer. It also incorporates the firing sound of Halo 3's Brute Shot. Finally, a more infinite accurate reticle will be coming in the next release, along with a scope. The plasma pistol now sports a Halo 3 inspired look. In campaign, overcharged bolts travel at a slower speed, but still track targets. However, in multiplayer, overcharged bolts travel at the same speed as vanilla, but don't track targets, to incentivize players to explore other strategies outside the noob combo, both in campaign and multiplayer. The VK78 Commando makes its way into FoRI V0.17's updated countdown mag, sporting a 20-round mag, signature hollow sight, and full auto headshot capability. Modeled and textured by Skookum Props, you'll find that the VK kicks some serious ass at medium range, and it also uses a mashup of Halo 2 Anniversary's SMG firing sound and H2A's turret sound effects. The VK78 is currently only in multiplayer, but it will make its campaign debut in Oni Sword Base with FoRI V0.2. The heavy shotgun is essentially the base Halo Reach shotgun with some visual tweaks, including orange iron sights. This shotgun is currently only planned to be featured in multiplayer and firefight. Now, I'll quickly go over some of the other various changes to some of the other weapons in FoRI. The Needler now resembles its Halo Infinite cousin, sporting a bluish-purple shell. The Sniper now has a blue scope as a nod to Halo Infinite and a darker color scheme. The Grenade Launcher now has a green ammo counter as a nod to the Halo Reach Beta DMR, and finally, the Halo Infinite Mangler will be coming in later builds. As you'll immediately notice when booting up New Alexandria, this isn't quite the same Falcon as vanilla. Meet the Spec Ops Falcon, with its darker color scheme and blue and red lights. However, the changes to this Falcon go beyond just aesthetics. This Falcon variant sports a fully automatic cannon with a new reticle and a secondary grenade launcher that you can access similarly to how you would access a Banshee bomb. While the Falcon's grenade launcher still has its stellar functionality, it no longer EMPs enemies, as I found it very annoying, since it takes more than one shot to destroy Banshees, so they just end up falling pretty far down the map and fly right back up to you, slowing down encounters significantly. However, this change only affects Falcon pilots, not the gunners. Also, the Falcon's grenade launcher now has an extended red reticle range, and has slight tracking on targets to make up for its lack of EMP, and consequently making it more useful against targets at longer ranges. However, you'll find that the fully automatic cannon is much more useful against enemies at closer ranges, due to its immense stopping power and wider bullet spread. These changes help give more flair to Falcon dogfights and makes Falcon sections much more enjoyable on Legendary. For Fall of Reach Infinite, I've made a few changes to your base player traits as well as the HUD. Starting off with player traits, I've slightly increased base movement speed and jump height, not only to mirror Halo Infinite, but also to allow players to more easily traverse the map in new, unique ways. Also, Sprint no longer functions as an armor ability, and is now a base player trait. To balance it out with the increased movement speed, I've slightly decreased the speed of Sprint, but extended its duration. You can see your Sprint meter in the equipment slot of your HUD, unless you have a piece of equipment in your inventory, but I'll dive into why this is the case and more about equipment later in the video. You also no longer take fall damage, and you regenerate health along with shields to mirror Halo Infinite, allowing players to jump back into the action more quickly. This eliminates the need for health packs, so I've removed all traces of them from campaign and multiplayer. And finally, I'll briefly touch up on FoRI's new HUD. I've based the HUD of FoRI heavily on this screenshot we saw earlier this year in the February Inside Infinite article, and I've tried to match it as closely as possible, with the weapon, grenade, ammo, and equipment all being located in the bottom right corner of your screen instead of the top right corner. However, this HUD isn't quite one-to-one since Halo Infinite uses number counters for backpack ammo and magazines. Currently, the backpack ammo is only displayed as a number in FoRI, though a function does exist that may allow me to get a number counter working for magazine ammo, but I'll need more time to experiment with it. For now, all weapons without ammo counters on the gun or battery meters use bullet icons of vanilla to represent ammo left in its magazine. Also, the weapon icons of the Skewer, VK78, and Sidekick were all drawn by my good friend RoyalZella24. Like Halo Infinite, Fall of Reach Infinite will also see the return of Halo 3 style equipment. However, due to current limitations in the implementation of the armor ability system, equipment will temporarily override Sprint. This is something that can be admittedly an annoyance, but I don't see a proper workaround becoming available until 343 releases proper mod tools for Halo Reach. Sprint, however, will be returned to you after activating the equipment. As mentioned earlier, equipment will be displayed in the bottom right of your HUD. These items will also drop on player death. Most equipment items are single use, but there will be some exceptions, like the jetpack, and now, let's dive into 3 current equipment items featured in FoRI 0.17. First up is the jetpack, which makes its return as an equipment. In campaign, the jetpack can be activated a total of 10 times before it expires, whereas in multiplayer, the jetpack can be activated 5 times before fuel runs out. Next up is the bubble shield. Halo Reach's drop shield has been modified to function similarly to the Halo 3 bubble shield, hence the name change. The Bubble Shield is a single-use equipment item, and it no longer has the regen effect since players no longer need health packs and to balance out encounters. However, the Bubble Shield can still take damage just like in Vanilla Reach. And finally, we have my favorite equipment item in FoRI so far, Concussive Blast, which makes its return from previous iterations of the FoRI campaign, but this time, it's back and better than ever. This equipment item is based off one from Halo Online of the same name. Concussive Blast is also a single-use item, and upon activation, your Spartan will violently slam the ground, emitting a powerful EMP shockwave. You'll love this item in encounters with plentiful elites or vehicles. While there are currently only 3 equipment items featured in FoRI so far, I intend to expand the amount of equipment in the mod. One such equipment will be heavily inspired by the repulsor from Halo Infinite, so keep an eye out for future updates. Now, let's talk about one of my favorite features of Fall of Reach Infinite, Throwable Fusion Coils. Thanks to Xayth, the mastermind behind this insane feature, you can now pick up and hurl fusion coils Halo Infinite style towards your enemies. It's such a satisfying feeling to toss a fusion coil into a group of enemies, and I highly recommend you go check out Xayth, because this feature is just absolutely incredible, and I can't wait to watch all of your clips with it. However, I do have to mention one odd quirk with the fusion coils in multiplayer only. In campaign, coils work normally, allowing you to toss them great distances by hitting your primary fire button. Most likely, your right trigger on controller, or left click on mouse and keyboard. Sadly, due to Reach's various multiplayer desync issues, fusion coils can now only be thrown in multiplayer by hitting the switch weapon key. I opted to choose this route, as if I enabled normal throwing like in campaign, anyone off-host in multiplayer wouldn't be able to see it. Regardless, fusion coils are so much fun to throw at enemies, and I'm excited to feature them in campaign, multiplayer, and firefight. One of my biggest issues by far with Vanilla Reach was the brutes. The brutes in Halo Reach, to me, were always incredibly boring, unmemorable, and just straight up not fun to fight, especially when compared to their Halo 2 and 3 counterparts. With their pitiful weapon pool, lack of berserk, and lackluster health, the brutes are incredibly stale and disappointing, especially since they can easily die with 2 well-placed headshots. Also, these brutes sport the worst designs the brutes have ever had. I mean, this face would even give Craig nightmares. So, I made it a goal from the very beginning of FoRI to make brutes more unique, interesting, and fun enemies to fight. The brute sandbox has been completely overhauled, with them sporting weapons that are focused around close quarters combat, like the brute vehemence, and severe damage output, like the Skewer, which is more fitting for their lack of berserk and more brutish nature. Speaking of their lack of berserk, I've sought to make the brutes more aggressive in combat scenarios. Not only are the brutes more likely to melee you, but they also actively seek to hunt you down, charging you from farther away to close distance. Brutes also now wield shotguns, just like in Halo 2 and the upcoming Halo Infinite, and trust me, there are few things as terrifying as a brute charging you down with a shotgun. I've also slightly increased the health of the brutes to ensure they're a bit more beefy without being complete bullet sponges, and their helmets are much stronger than before to ensure you can't just two-shot them with a precision weapon. Because of their increased toughness, you'll want to use heavier weapons like the Scout Shotgun, Brute Vehemence, and Skewer to take them out, or target exposed areas. I've also made a few cosmetic changes to the brutes. Miners now sport a much more vibrant teal armor color, and they sport undersuits for added protection, since I always thought their excessive amount of exposed skin was very odd. Captains also now sport a more vibrant gold color, and I've changed the skin color of both of these brutes to a leathery brown, much like in the April Inside Infinite. Overall, I feel FoRI's brutes are much more interesting enemies to face in combat, and now they have 3 enemy-specific weapons, soon to be 4 with the Mangler, compared to their 1 unique weapon in Vanilla, the Spiker. The only 2 weapons they now share with the elites are the Mark I Ravager and the Proto Stalker. These changes have, in my opinion, made the brutes a more unique foe in Fall of Reach Infinite. As I'm sure most of you are aware of by now, it's been heavily speculated that Halo Infinite will include boss fights as a major element of its campaign. While boss fights aren't really all that practical to create right now without official mod tools, I have opted to give each and every mission of FoRI its own specific hunter encounter. In New Alexandria, these hunters are loosely based off the Halo 3 ODST hunter captains, sporting a gold color and blue lights. However, unlike the Halo 3 ODST captains, these hunters fire shade turret projectiles in bursts, making them more deadly, especially at a range. I opted to loosely base my hunters off those from ODST because, well, ODST is not only my favorite campaign, but I also found it to be the perfect setting since, well, you're in another dying, burning city. These hunters I call the Urban Hunters, and I can't wait for you to see the other hunter variants featured throughout FoRI's campaign. Before moving on, I'd like to once again just briefly touch up on the various changes to the Covenant's color palette. If you haven't seen my last video, I'll play this clip for you right now so you can see the various changes I made to the Covenant's colors and why I made those changes. First and foremost, I never really liked the color palette for the Covenant in Halo Reach. I just never liked how bland and dull certain enemies like the Elites and Grunts looked. And I get that Bungie wanted to make Reach a bit darker, but I feel like changing the color scheme of the Covenant that radically wasn't necessary to achieve this goal, especially when we look at Halo 2 and 3, which had brighter, more vibrant color palettes, but the more serious or emotional moments of those games still landed. Same applies to ODST. Also, to me, the Covenant always felt like a group more interested in showing off their higher status and rank with bright, easily identifiable colors than anything else, which is why I've restored their more classic, vibrant color schemes, which, to my surprise, has made a huge change to making them feel more in line to what we see in the original trilogy and Halo Infinite. On a side note, Elites will retain all of their unique armor sets from Vanilla Reach, as we've seen with Halo Infinite's merchandise, except Zealots receive their OG trilogy yellow coloration, and officers now sport a red-orangish color. Also, Grunt Majors now sport a blue to purple gradient color scheme similar to 343's design for the Grunts, but with a more bright and vibrant color scheme akin to the original trilogy. Overall, I'm very happy with this change, and I think the brighter colors of the Covenant contrast nicely with the more gritty colors of the UNSC. And well, that just about wraps it up for today's deep dive into FoRI. I hope you're enjoying what you're seeing so far, and be sure to check out the New Alexandria demo on Nexus. If you need help installing the mod, I've left a link to an unlisted video in the description that will help you with everything you need to know. Also, I just want to quickly give another thanks to Spartan0398, SkookumProps, RelZealot24, and Xayth for all of their respective contributions to the mod. For future versions, missions will be released in chronological order. For FoRI 0.2, the missions of choice will be Winter Contingency and Oni Sword Base. The multiplayer map will be Tempest, and, well, the Fire Vat map will be Installation 04. I can't wait to share more details about 0.2, and, well, get it out to you later this summer. For now, be sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter as I regularly post updates of the mod on both of those platforms, and also subscribe here on YouTube as I often live stream a lot of my progress. I'm also planning to upload a lot more content now, so yeah, be sure to stick around for it by hitting that red button. It's been a long journey since the last video, and it's kind of crazy to see how far I've come, and a lot of that progress is due to you guys. Your awesome comments and encouraging DMs have really inspired me to keep growing as a modder. Again, thank you all so much, and, well, I'll see you guys in the next video.
Me go bang, you go wee.